Hi all, welcome back to JV's Tech Log, now in its latest iteration. You'll have to forgive the long hair and not shaving. I'm going to claim this is part of the new COVID-19 look, sans the mask of course. Well, my goal, as in the past, is to briefly highlight some of the technical trends and stories that made the news. Include one or two fun video clips from the recent past, back when we could actually travel to trade shows and conferences, and also provide just a tease for the future. So let's get started with a segment I call Would I Walls, or what I wrote about last week. Coders. Software engineers find new work with right skills. This was a piece, exactly as it sounds, about coding, noting that not all markets have been crushed by the coronavirus, but it's still important to have the right skill set. Among other things, I talk about the top 3 programming languages according to GitHub. You know what those are? If you said Python as one of them, you're right. JavaScript and Java are followed by PHP, C# and C++. TypeScript comes in at 6th. Haven't used that in a while. Python remains high on the popular languages on both the GitHub list and one of the other lists. This article I also covers some of the free online tools that you can use to brush up your skills in those languages, or add some new ones. Earth smiles at electronics made from wood and silk. Yeah, not wood and silk, wood and silk. So this is a nod to ecology. In particular, it's making electronic chips from wood and silk. Certainly challenges with this, but it's being done. And it's an impressive feat and well suited for our Internet of Things throwaway mindset, our society. Certainly a lot of sensors that we're going to use that we, once they serve their purpose, we'll get rid of them, perhaps on consumer goods and whatnot. We would like them to be biodegradable. And that's what this is about. So while we can't go hog wild and create the wooden bender yet, not to Futurama, a wooden robot, we can certainly start making some parts of that system, and certainly the sensors, and 8, maybe 16-bit microprocessors in flexible material that's biodegradable. Next, I took a look at superheroes, and I decided to approach this on the 5 senses that humans have, and what if we could extend those? What kind of superpowers might we have? That's a fun little slideshow, so I invite you to take a look. I think one of the coolest things that I saw, but there were many, but one of them, and I wrote briefly about, was putting laser-enabled contact lenses onto cows, onto the eyeball of a cow, because it's large for one thing. So that's right, you can have cows that shoot laser beams from their eyes. Yeah, that's a power. All right, changing up a bit, I covered crystal radios for our kind of, a lot of us are do-it-yourselfers, and most of us did some sort of crystal radio years ago when we were younger. This is a little bit different. I present how we can do that, of course, but it's no fun to have a crystal radio if you can't really tune in anything, and there aren't that many really good AM stations anymore. So I also include just a little the basics of putting together a little AM broadcasting station. So this is kind of a fun project. I mean, you can do it with your kids or do it with someone else, so you can broadcast and pick it up. The last story I focused on last week was one called Remote and Secure Provisioning is Essential in an Age of COVID-19. This sounds a little bit dry, I know, but it's not, especially with so many of us working from home. So we, IT departments, a lot of folks, and certainly it has implications in the Internet of Things, they want to be able to remotely provision assets as they're needed. And that's what this is all about, how to do that, some of the tools that are available, some of the issues that you have. And as I say, it sounds a little bit dry, but you know, one of the things I didn't really cover, but I might in a future piece, it was paranoid provisioning, which is actually a real thing. Not a conspiracy thing, but a way that some IT groups stay ahead of the curve, or try to anyway. All right, well, that was fun. Now, I'd like to include a little section here called BC-19, or before COVID-19. And all it really is going to be are some clips, some interesting little tech clips from all sorts of different shows that I've traveled to over the last little bit, and maybe even further back. So let's take a look at this first one. So this little critter was at the Intel Developer Forum back 2014, I think. It was put together by a student. He was at the time an undergraduate at the University of Arizona. He developed this smart hexapod, as he called it, using the legs were 3D printed from in one of the school labs. Well, excuse me. Now, meaning back when he displayed this at the Intel Developer Forum, he transformed it into a what he calls a SpiderBot, using the Intel Edison, which was a low-power kind of ARM-like processor that Intel made. I don't believe they do anymore, though. And because it was lightweight, the structure didn't have to be very heavy, and it didn't have to have a whole lot of components. So this is one of two that he made, and that's what we're seeing here. All right, to wrap things up, I just want to do a little bit of a look ahead. And this time the look ahead is mainly going to be about some online events. The first one is the IEEE, the International Reliability and Physics Symposium, which is actually running for 3 days, I believe. It started today. And it started with an opening, some keynotes, and there'll be presentations for the next 3 days. And it's all online, of course. It would have been held in Italy, but not now, certainly with coronavirus. But they've done a good job, and I just watched the first opening parts, but it looks like they've done a good job of making the material suitable for the online environment. Even, I think, the chair said 70 to 80% of all the presentations have an online component as well, in addition to the tutorials and everything else. So worth checking out. The other one that's going on a little later in the week is the EDA Alliance, which is now part of the semi community, is doing a bootstrapping a startup to make it profitable, of course, in these times. And it's being hosted by Jim Hogan, which is well known in the VC community down in Silicon Valley, and Methodix CEO Simon Butler, excuse me. And actually, I interviewed Simon, I think it was last year, and I've written that up in another piece that I believe it will appear this week on Design News, and the focus is on IP management. The presentation they're going to do is more on bootstrapping a startup company. And the last thing of interest, there really is quite a bit going on this week, is there's a big semiconductor outlook forum going on, kind of a quarterly reporting, and that's going to happen either this Thursday or Friday. Well, that's all I have for now. See you next week.